What TTRPG do you think had the best writing, and which had the best art?
Ooh, that's tricky. I mean, there's a bunch of books that have had good art, but I don't think that's necessarily what we want to go for here. Just the competence of some of the pieces. TSR back in the day had access to some brilliant artists, and Wizards during the 3rd edition period had access to some brilliant artists. That seems to have fallen away a bit during 4th edition, and now 5th edition is... I mean, it's competent, but it's rubbish. It has no flavour, no distinction. There's going to be exceptions, so don't hold me up on that, but overall, I find the art in the newer books very bland. There's the games like Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood, relating to art by Simon Stalenhag, but he made those as art books in the first place that were then turned into games. So that would perhaps be a little unfair. I think, thinking back, Vampire has always stuck with me. Now, you might dismiss Tim Bradstreet's art as tracing, but it was distinctive and evocative and helped stamp that game as being modern at the time, and artistic and different. And the cover, I still think was pure genius. Green marble with a red rose on it. Simple, striking, graphic, which went against the style of the time, which always tended to be much more complicated images. I find myself, when I'm doing my own books, constantly torn between, do I want to make this more illustrative or do I want to make it more graphic? And I tend still to err on the side of illustrative, because if you're doing just graphic design, you have to get it exactly right. And I love old paperback covers, from old science fiction covers, even the abstract ones, much more than I like modern SF and fantasy paperback covers, which tend to be more minimalist, more graphical, more boring. And I'm not just saying that because I think it's doing, fantasy artists out of a lot of potential work. It's just, it doesn't excite me for the most part. There are, again, exceptions. Heavy Gear used primarily this one studio's particular artist with this particular style for everything, and that gave it a really strong visual message. I mean, if you didn't like that style, you were out of luck, but otherwise it was great. So I loved the design in the 1st and 2nd edition Heavy Gear. There's a new edition coming out. I'm not sure about the art. It seems like it's trying to ape the same style, but it doesn't seem to be at the same level of quality. I'll forgive it because I love the game, but so that's an issue. Those are the ones that leap out to me as being games that had good art rather than art that had good games, if you get me. Those are the ones I would pick out, that I would pluck out of the ether. Heavy Gear and Vampire. Both of them, I think, have had disproportionate influence, and I think that's a good thing. When it comes to writing, though, it pains me to say this, and I'm going to make myself more unpopular, but writing isn't really a big part of tabletop role-playing games. I mean, there's a lot of words, but the writing isn't as much of a big deal as it could be, perhaps, because role-playing books are mostly technical manuals and travelogues. And when you include fiction in your RPG book, usually people don't read it. Usually it's awful. Just go and write a book. Don't force your fanfic on everybody else. So it's a bit of a weird one. There's not a lot you can really do differently. I present my games in a more conversational and matey style, and that's the style that I prefer to read. But I can't really think of many other RPGs that approach the writing in that way. So yeah, writing not as important, unfortunately.